And so Valentine's Day is quickly approaching, and for those of you who don't like Valentine's Day or don't believe in it, I don't know why you're even watching this episode, but for the rest of you, you're gonna love it. Now, Valentine's Day many times conjures up thoughts of flowers, chocolates, and whatnot, but it also conjures up the idea of a romantic dinner, a romantic event of some sort, and of course, candlelight. And I'm being lit by candlelight right now. It's creating some ambiance that you just don't get from traditional lighting. But of course, this is the way to not do it. Maybe it would be great if there was a storm overhead and it was a romantic evening and the power had gone out and I'm having dinner or cuddling with the special someone, but right now I'm trying to produce a video for my wonderful audience. So let's add a little bit more light to the situation, shall we? Ah, yes, a little more light, and you can see me, but not quite enough. So we're going to add up a little bit more because, well, you need to be able to see me so I can demonstrate some things. But this is kind of a nice ambiance that you could actually use if you were going to use such a type of ambiance and lighting and dimmers for your special event. So, all right, there we go. A little bit more light and you can see me and everything is good to go. So, Valentine's Day, it's coming up. It's Saturday, in fact. Depending on when you're watching this episode, you may have a couple days or you may have until tomorrow or a couple hours to get ready. Now, Valentine's Day, of course, does conjure up, like I said, these thoughts of chocolates, red wine, and I don't happen to have any roses. But of course, Valentine's Day is important for another reason. It's a time to celebrate your love for your special someone. It can even be love for a friend. Some people get really upset not having anything to do special on Valentine's Day or being single. Well, you can just call up a friend and say, hey, let's go to dinner. And that can be a wonderful gesture in its own right. Not necessarily romantic, but just a wonderful gesture. So at the end of the day, you want to create something that is romantic. Let's just assume that you're going to have a wonderful event for your special someone. The key is to not overdo it. And many people, like we just had in the open, where I literally had nothing except candles lighting me up and the rest of this room, that was too much ambiance, where it's basically you can't even see. Kind of like going to a restaurant and you can't read the menu and you got to dig out your phone light or the camera or the flash or whatever. It's too much. So you want to have the right amount of light for the situation. And there's multiple ways of doing that. Obviously, candles is something that we really haven't discussed on Lighting Answers before, but since it is a lighting show, I wouldn't be a good host and I wouldn't be giving you good information if I didn't include candles and fire. Now, of course, you want to be careful around that. So if you have children, pets, whatever, be careful before you light candles up, or better yet, you can use LED-based candles. So let's go ahead and for the moment assume that we are going to be creating, or you're going to be creating, some sort of romantic dinner. We'll just say that that's kind of generic, but I can very easily describe this. And you'll notice that, well, I don't have really a dining room. If you've seen the other pictures of this space, I moved from a larger space to a smaller space, and in upcoming episodes we're going to be able to compare and contrast the larger and smaller spaces. I used to have a dining room, don't anymore. So we'll go ahead and take a look at where I had a dining room before, and a very small dining room table for two. And this is obviously very brightly lit, not very romantic. And now here it is in a more romantic sense, creating more ambiance through the appropriate use of lighting. Now you're going to say, well, how does that work? My idea is that you put less light on the table itself. Most, dining rooms are generally going to have some sort of light coming from the ceiling, whether that's a down light or a chandelier or some type of pendant light perhaps, or a couple of them. You want to bring those down. We've talked about very inexpensive dimmers. If you don't have home automation systems and special apps and things like that, you don't need it. Just run down to your hardware store, Target, whatever, and get yourself some sort of basic rotary dimmer or something that you can use to adjust that light. And preferably, if you can do it for the rest of the lights in the room, if there even are such things in your room, the better. You want to have it down, the main light coming down onto your table about 30 to 35%. Now in this image, it looks a little bit brighter than it really is, and it had to be done for the camera to pick it up correctly and to show you the contrast between the brighter lights around the room and the lower lights on the table. So you actually want to create it a little bit lower than what you're seeing here. What it allows you to do is see your special someone, see perhaps whatever you're going to be serving to them, and well, if you were at a restaurant, you would be able to read the menu. And what I would do is make sure all the other lights in the room are off when you do this. So set your main light down to about 30%, just a nice glow that you can see the table and it's not so ridiculously dark. Let's just go back to the other one and I can kind of demonstrate. So you want to have a little bit of glow. We'll bring that off, probably a little bit higher than this for the table so that you can actually see the table and see items on it. You're not necessarily going to be reading newspaper, but you get the picture. Then you want to add light around the room. If you already have lights and you can dim those down, maybe to 50 to 55, 60%, 2/3. You don't have to be exact with numbers. It'll allow you to have light that's coming from the other parts of the room and then bouncing forward and bouncing into the dining space onto the table and so forth. And that creates light without it being so harsh and it being overwhelming. And because you then have light coming from around the room and some light coming down from the ceiling onto the table, you then have a wonderful romantic setting and it does not seem like it's too overpowering. So I'll bring us back here to where we were. So you may say, well, what kind of lights are you talking about? Well, I really love using up lights and down lights and soft lighting. And I had in this other space, I had these two down lights coming down, crisscrossing on the wall, and the light came through the special fabric panels that I got from IKEA, and it was a really cool three-dimensional kind of hanging art piece. And I had also, there were some around the room, there were also some up lights. So those lights were up 50% or so, and then the main the chandelier, so to speak, was down in the 30s. And it really created something wonderful. Now you'll see, of course, on the table, I have a candle. It's just a tiny one of these little guys. And those are good for many different purposes. These are for, basically tea light holders. They can even be votive holders and so forth. And they come in many colors and sizes. You've seen them if you're out and about. And I have a number of them in a couple different colors. I actually didn't bring that prop, so that's a challenge, but I have a different one. So let's talk about candles for your place setting, for your dinner table. I like using something, and I've had this for a while, I like using something like this. Here's a close-up of it actually on. And this is wonderful because you can actually create some ambiance and glow beyond what your chandelier is putting out. And when you put out the candles and you light them, you probably need to adjust the lighting to compensate, so that you want to make sure that the candles do have a glow to them and they are not just lost in the light that's bathing the area and the table and yourselves, honestly, from the rest of the room, or the light coming down onto your table. So let's demonstrate that. I like lighting candles with these Scripto devices because it's easier than lighting matches, but do whatever you like. Very easy to light these guys up. And so now if I bring down the lighting here and we go back to a little bit of more darkness, you'll see that if these are forward here at about a table height would be, that it's going to cast, and depending on, obviously you're not going to have these right on your face. It's not going to be like some strange, telling scary stories around a campfire. But they do add, and you can see it actually, you can see it here on the couch. You can see it, again, if I pull it up here, it adds that glow, that fiery, wonderful glow that we just can't get from LED lights, from incandescent lights. It's that wonderful candle fire glow. We talked about it actually on episode 1. We talked about the origin of light and the sun and fire and all that good stuff. But this is something that is really important to use. Now, if you don't like using real candles, so like I said, this is a great type of little candle holder. It's got, they're clear little cups basically, and they hold tea lights. You can also put votives, small votive candles in there, and you could have any kind of centerpiece that you like with perhaps pillar candles or even floating candles that would be in a little bowl of a little clear bowl of, say, water. But if you don't like using regular candles, again, if you have kids or there's some kind of regulation or you're not allowed to use them in your home or apartment or something like that, you can of course also get these little, and here's a close-up of these in action, these little LED candles. They're flameless candles, basically electronic candles, what have you. Restaurants are starting to use them to avoid costs of dealing with actual candles and the fuel and so forth associated with it, and the safety factor. But these are cool, and this one's a couple years old. That kind of tries to make a little flame, but it's not that great. And the newer ones are better, but these, and they last a long time. They're pretty good. So now you have an idea on what to do. But again, like we talked about with going overboard, people can go overboard. You could say, well, I have a couple days. I could get home automation. I could get dimmers. I could get the Philips Hue bulbs, and I could create some crazy romantic scene. Now, there might be some people who want to do that and use all kinds of crazy colored lights and music and whatnot. And I don't know who those people would be. But anyways, let's talk about not using colored light properly. Now, I dedicated an entire episode to this, so I don't need you to stop here, but we're going to put a little link somewhere on the screen, and you can click it and look at our episode on colored light. So, as you can see, I have lit myself up from, well, that didn't quite do it now, did it? Sometimes home automation doesn't work out so well. So we'll just try that silly trick again. Oh, there it goes. Yes, this is live production. So as you can see, lighting someone up red is not necessarily the greatest idea in the world, because human skin tones, red is not terrible, but the other colors like blue and so forth just don't work well with human skin tones. And you could do something like this. You could put a Philips Hue bulb in a different light around your home, many different lights, but it's really overkill, and it's just not necessary. What I like to do with colored light is accent, 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 and I don't even mean to put it into like a regular lamp. That just seems silly. It's like you have a red light district, or there's an alarm about to go off. Again, maybe your house has gone on fire, and some of the LED lights that are out there, the Philips Hue and the LifeX, actually claim that they can turn all your lights red if your smoke detector detects a fire. Well, in that case, just get out of the house. But anyhow, back to this. Red light, blue light, green light, whatever, is not the greatest on human skin tones. So use it as accents only. You can do it with red, you can do it with purple. Let's see how purple would look. Probably not that great. And let me just do this quickly so that I don't bore you with getting around to these things. And we'll go to purple here. Yeah, not so great. And perhaps even blue. Yeah, not quite so great either. There's blue. But let's just bring it back to the way we had it before, and it'll change here in a second. And hopefully the other one did. How wonderful. Lovely when everything works. So human skin tones and color, not always the great thing. So use little accent lights, use up lights, use one of my favorite places, of course, and it's inexpensive and allows you to experiment very easily, is IKEA. They have all kinds of little lights, and you can put colored lights inside their white ones. You can get the ones that already have the colored shades on them. They're really, really cool. And of course, Valentine's Day colors, you think purples and reds and pinks, those are the defaults. You could use blue, but blue's kind of perhaps a sad color. You could use oranges, warm colors. Stay away from greens and things like that. Doesn't make any sense. Perhaps some yellows and golds to do a couple different things. And you could use those as your ambiance lighting, but not too much. Don't overdo it. Don't use more than about 30% of your lighting as accent or sort of colored lighting. It's just not recommended. And so now it's time for you to springboard. I've given you some great ideas and some starter ways to make your romantic event or whatever you're going to do on Valentine's Day something that looks really wonderful with ambiance that isn't overdone, and you'll be able to enjoy a wonderful time with whoever that is. And even if you just decide to have a Valentine's Day by yourself, you can create wonderful ambiance just for yourself. Of course, this is Lighting Answers, and our next episode is going to actually be a Q&A as we get started monthly to actually have a Q&A with all the questions and comments that come in. And I love those. Please keep sending your questions. You can do that to questions@answers.lighting. You can comment on the videos, find us on social media, all that good stuff. Love it, and we're going to be doing the monthly Q&As so that all the ones that I've already answered, everyone else can have the benefit of getting those answers. And we'll be delving into some other great topics: lighting, light bulb reviews, LEDs, and of course home automation and some home style just like this. So I'm hoping that you have a wonderful Valentine's Day, whatever that may be. And if you do create something that looks really amazing and has some wonderful ambiance, please do take a picture of it and send it along to that same email address. You can actually use it for anything, not just questions. Questions@answers.lighting. So I'm going to create a little ambiance for myself right here in the home studio, and I'm going to wish you that you have a wonderful and beautifully lit Valentine's Day, whatever you decide to do. I'm Joe DeGansik for Lighting Answers, and I'll talk to you next time.